and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to look at an article which is titled World Bog Snorkelling Championships, a muddy and murky challenge. As usual, I will read through it. Feel free to read with me, or if you want to just listen and perhaps read later, that's fine. And also we'll be talking about some of the interesting words that I found in this article. So let's read the first paragraph. The World Bog Snorkelling Championships, an annual event that attracts hundreds of competitors from around the world, returned to Wales last weekend after a 2-year hiatus due to the coronavirus pandemic. The event, which was described by Lonely Planet as one of the top 50 must-do things from around the world in 2014, takes place at a peat bog in the smallest town in Wales. So, first of all, I've highlighted the word attract. Okay, this is a verb, and the basic meaning of attract, I suppose, one of the best examples would be magnetism. If you know what a magnet is, then you know that if you put a magnet near iron, a piece of metal, it will attract it. In other words, the metal will be attracted, it will be pulled towards the magnet. So in this case, it's used slightly more metaphorically. There's nothing physically pulling people to this event, but they are attracted to the event, just like the metal is attracted to the magnet. I suppose because the event has become more popular over the years, more and more people from around the world have been attracted to this place. The second word we have here is hiatus. Slightly unusual word, perhaps. Originally from Latin, the original meaning of this was a physical gap. If you've ever traveled to London and you've been on the metro or the underground, as it's called there, you'll know, you've probably heard the phrase mind the gap. And that refers to the space that exists between the platform and the wagon. So that's a physical gap. So in the past, a hiatus was also like a gap. But today, it's used to refer to a gap in time, a gap in an activity. So during the coronavirus pandemic, this event did not take place. So there was a hiatus, a gap. The third word we have here, it's actually two words, but I've highlighted them together because really they go together. And it is peat bog. Peat bog. The first word is either a noun or an adjective, and the second word is a noun. Let's start with the noun, bog. Well, we can actually see a bog here in the two lower pictures. It's basically a very, very wet place covered with vegetation and full of water. And usually the ground is very, very soft. Usually we find these bogs in areas of the world where there's a lot of rain, such as Wales. And peat, the word that goes before bog, in this case just refers to the material, the earth, if you like, or the soil that makes up the bog. When the vegetation rots down and decomposes, it creates a kind of earth, which is called peat. So let's move on to the second paragraph and we'll read that. The challenge involves completing 2 consecutive lengths of a 60-yard water-filled trench cut through a peat bog in the shortest time possible, using only flippers and a snorkel. Conventional swimming strokes are not allowed, and participants have to endure cold, dark, and claustrophobic conditions in the murky water. So the first word we have highlighted here is trench. Trench. This is a noun and it refers to a physical thing. During the First World War, there was a kind of warfare which developed called trench warfare. The reason it had this name is because after the initial battles, the armies became stuck in a position without being able to advance very far. So each of the armies, of the opposing armies, had to dig long trenches so they could protect themselves from the enemy. So a trench is basically when you dig a hole and you make it very long. And in the case of warfare, it's for protection, for keeping you safe from the enemy's bullets and shells. But in this case, obviously, the trench is for swimming. As you can see in the picture below, there's a long trench which is filled with water. And this is the place where the swimmers have to swim. So the second and the third words that are highlighted here, these really go together because during this activity, you have to use some special equipment. One of the things are flippers, which are two things that you put on your feet, and they enable you to swim a lot faster as you kick your legs. And the other is a snorkel, which is basically a tube that you insert in your mouth, and this allows you to breathe under the water as you're swimming. The final word we have in this paragraph is murky. This is an adjective, so it's used to describe usually liquids. In this case, as we can see, it combines with the word water. And it basically describes a kind of water where there's a lot of dirt mixed in with the water, and so it becomes very difficult to see when you swim in it. It's very dark and it's very full of particles, full of dirt. In this case, probably full of peat from the bog. So it's dirty water. Okay, let's continue reading. The current world champion is Neil Rutter, a 39-year-old teacher from Bath, who achieved a time of 1 minute 18.82 seconds in the 2018 championships and became the new world record holder. He defended his title for the fifth time this year, beating his previous best time by zero point 0.3 seconds. Rutter, who is a two-time cancer survivor, said he became obsessed with bog snorkeling after winning his first championship in 2017. So there are only two words I've highlighted here. The first is achieved. So this is a regular verb. Achieve is the infinitive. Achieved is the past. And in this case, it refers to the champion who managed to get a time of 1 minute 18.82 seconds. So he achieved that time. When you have an objective, for example, if you want to win a race, then that is your objective. That is what you're aiming for. And if you manage to do it, if you reach that objective, then we can say you have achieved it. Okay, let's move on to the second and last one in this paragraph, obsessed. It says he became obsessed with bog snorkeling. Now, when somebody becomes obsessed, it basically means that they think about it all the time. They have a very big focus on whatever it is that they are obsessed with. In this case, bog snorkeling. So he probably practiced it and practiced it a lot, and that was all he thought about for many weeks. And he tried his hardest in order to win the competition. People can become obsessed with anything, of course. A little bit similar to an addiction, I suppose, in a way. In the same way, it's difficult to give it up if you're obsessed with it. Okay, let's read the final paragraph here. The event also features a bog triathlon, which consists of an 8-mile run followed by a 12-mile mountain bike ride, followed by a 60-yard bog snorkel. There is also a bite-sized triathlon for the less adventurous. and a fancy dress competition for those who want to add some fun to their snorkeling. The event is organized by Green Events Limited, a not for profit company that aims to promote the town of Llanwrtyd Wells and raise money for various charities. Okay, so in this final paragraph, we have two highlighted words. The first one is a compound adjective, and it refers to the competition whereby people dress up. They put on costumes. They could be unusual costumes, or they could be famous people from history. Basically, they put those on for fun, and sometimes people have a fancy dress party whereby when you go to the party, you have to dress up, you have to put on a costume. Sometimes there's a theme. Could be something like Halloween, for example. At Halloween, people dress up and they dress as a Dracula or some kind of monster. Okay, the final word we have here is charity. In this case, it's the plural, charities. And basically, a charity is an organization. It's usually non governmental. And that organization's objective is to raise money, that's to collect money, get money for a particular cause. Now, there are many, many different charities all over the world with many, many different causes. But in this case, a lot of the money that is raised goes to charities in the local area. Okay, so I hope that's been informative and I hope you've learned something, maybe learned a few new words. If you've enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.